Hey, I'm Wayne Cabot, mornings on WCBS with a guy that I used to compete against in the morning. So I'm very glad he's coming back in the afternoons now. I don't need the pressure. Welcome back to the family, Craig Carton.
I appreciate it very, very much. I'm also happy I get to sleep in a little bit now, too.
Yeah. Don't rub that in, please. Yeah, it's going to be so much nicer for you. And I get to listen to you, which is nice. I actually heard you when you came back last week, which I thought was some of the best radio I've heard. And I'm not just schmoozing you because you're right in front of me on this call. But I had to wonder what it was like walking back in there. Was it weird? Did you feel welcome? What was that like?
Well, it was definitely weird and surreal and different than the last time I was there because, the building's still relatively empty because of COVID concerns. So I walked back and I was expecting the hustle and bustle of, multiple radio stations. There's about 5 stations in our cluster that are all owned by Entercom, and normally there's a lot of people milling around. And I walked into what was essentially an empty building. So that alone was just different based on the 10 years I spent in the building prior to that. But yeah, walking in it felt really normal and like home. And at the same time, I was a little nervous walking back into the building because you just don't know what the reception is going to be like, who's taking a look at you, what you're going to do. And I felt really good that it went really well. It was well received. And now that I've done it, I've been back in the building since. And other than trying to figure out how the elevator works, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, the elevator's a pain. I'm not going to lie. That doesn't get any.
Well, you have to push a button before you even walk on the elevator.
Yeah, and then the
that
voice
didn't exist when I left.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the little scanner thing is supposed to bring you to your floor, but it brings me to a different floor, and I have to push a different button. I'm taking the stairs, getting my steps in.
Yeah.
That's my advice to you. When you came back, that was some really raw and powerful radio. So because you were that honest, I don't mind asking you some honest questions. I mean,
Yeah.
and hopefully you're okay with that. A lot of people are rooting for you and a lot of people are rooting against you, but I guess it's probably been your whole career because you do have a passionate way about you. You are entertaining. You put it out there. You call the shots as you see them. You don't hold back. Is it fair when people say to you, well, geez, he's a celebrity. He got out early. He's getting a second chance. A lot of other people don't. I'm sure you're hearing that.
Yeah, listen, I think people can say whatever they want to say. It's fair. Sure. Everyone has the right to their opinion. At the end of the day, as far as my return to WFAN, it wasn't up to me. It wasn't up to those people out there. It was up to WFAN. And they decided as a company that they thought I still brought a lot to the table. They accepted the fact that I paid a significant price for what I did, and we can get into that in a second. And they're the only ones that matter. They felt that I was worthy of a second chance. Period. Stop. I'm getting a second chance. It didn't matter if I felt I was. It didn't matter if someone else felt I wasn't. The people that write the check, that own the radio station, feel that I'm worthy of a second chance. Now, as far as people suggesting, oh, he's a celebrity, he got special treatment, we can go through that quickly. I've been away for 3 years. I went to prison for more than a year, and I'm not done yet. And this will follow me, as it should, for the remainder of my life. But the notion that I didn't pay any price for what I did, I would counter that in saying I paid a significant price. Now, I should have. I did bad things. I did wrong things. I broke the law. And there are consequences to that. And I'm living those consequences and live those consequences. Financially, emotionally, family, friends, all the things that come along with it that I torched while I was being a knucklehead are part of my penance. So the only thing I would counter there is the for those that want to make the statement he didn't pay for his crime, that's just not accurate. Now you may think I should have paid more. You're entitled to have that opinion, but the notion that I got some kind of special treatment just not right.
Well, and I wonder if you, as an addict and somebody who has had to deal with his demons, as I think we all do in our own different ways, whatever's going on in our worlds. And you were very honest about the abuse that happened to you at a young age. And I know that can really turn someone into an addict. It can turn someone, for example, especially sexual abuse can make someone hypersexual. It can make them asexual. It can make them lash out in different ways. It can make them have two different personalities. They can lie to themselves and become very good at it. And you know all about that. But then the moment comes when you're called on it, and it can be liberating. I'm wondering if that's what you feel now. Do you feel liberated, or do you feel like, hey, this is my personal stuff, I shouldn't have to be sharing it with the world?
No, I want to share it with the world because I'm in a really unique position where I have a great platform to effectuate change and help with people that may not have known that there's other people like them out there. So I think the more open I am about it, ultimately, I think I'll feel better about myself. I think I will use my position professionally and my platform to help people that were in different stages of what I went through. I've lived it now. I have great credibility when it comes to talking about a number of things, most notably, compulsive gambling. I used compulsive gambling as a cocoon, made me feel good. It allowed me to avoid a lot of the emotions and feelings I was trying for a very, very long time to avoid. And I got to a point where I used it in an extraordinarily unhealthy manner. But the fact that it's out there really in part because of the trial. Some of the things came out, but now it's out there by my choice. For so long, I denied I had a problem. And in denying it, I exacerbated the problem. When I went to rehab out in Arizona, which I did before my trial, before sentencing and all that, I had this great, life epiphany. And it was what you referenced. It was the acknowledgement that I have a problem. Because prior to going there, if you had asked me, I would have looked you dead in the eye and said, you have the problem. I'm good. You just can't understand that I'm really good at blackjack, or how I process it and why it's not a problem. And that was just me deflecting the reality that, I had a real problem, a significant problem, and it was starting to dictate how I lived my life and a lot of the choices that I decided to make. The far majority of those choices unhealthy and not good for me or the people around me. So the fact that I'm now blessed to have this opportunity to have that microphone in front of my fat face again, with an audience to hear what I have to say, I'm not gonna throw that opportunity out the window. I'm going to take advantage of it, and I'm going to try to the best of my ability to raise awareness to the problem and to be a voice of responsibility for that problem.
Yeah, I don't want to beat this to death, but you make a really good point about raising awareness, and I think it's really helpful to point out that when an adult abuses someone, the power of the shame that we feel protects these predators. And it turns victims into very skillful liars who lie to themselves as much as others. So what you're saying is you probably would never have dealt with this if not for getting caught, being in crisis.
I think there's an aspect of that that's accurate. That ultimately, I think I was on a downward spiral because of the amount of time and energy I spent, gambling, lying about gambling, and all the things that came with it, and how often I was trying to escape more and more and more and more and more. So I think ultimately, listen, nobody wants to be arrested. Nobody wants to go to prison. But lifestyle-wise, I was in a downward spiral, and I'm not sure where that would have ended. It wouldn't have been good, for sure. There was going to be an explosion at some point. So there are days I do contemplate, did the FBI save my life? They very well might have, because I was out of control, playing blackjack. And it didn't matter what anyone wanted to say to me. It did not matter. I wasn't listening.
Have you felt that pull since, the temptation to get back into it?
I haven't. I haven't gambled in over 2 years now. June 19th, 2018 is the last time I made a wager of any kind. And it was at a blackjack table. And I don't have the craving, but I also couldn't sit here and tell you today that if you put, a stack of cash in front of me and an Uber driver with a one-way trip to a casino, that I could say no to that. I hope that I would. And, I feel like I would say no, but I wouldn't swear on a stack of Bibles that I'd have the strength to. So I know it seems cliche. I didn't gamble today. So today's a good day. If I wake up tomorrow, I'll try to get through tomorrow and not gamble. And I know, the question that's coming up, because I've dealt with it a lot, I'm going to be surrounded by gambling advertisements.
Right.
And I'm aware of that, and the company is aware of that. And one of the great things about the conversations I had with Entercom as a parent company is the fact that they have given me total carte blanche to the extent that I want to talk about responsible gambling from 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock every single day of the week, I'm allowed to do it. We're also going to create some specialty programming around responsible gambling, but they want me to own it. And they've been very, very supportive in understanding that, I am going to talk about the potential dangers. Listen, a lot of people wager recreationally as often as they want, and it's not a problem. And they should be allowed to do that and enjoy doing that. I'm not shoving my agenda down their throat. But my message will reach other people who can't and may not know how to handle the feelings that they're having when it starts to spiral out of control. And I think there's a happy medium there. I think those things are not mutually exclusive. And I'm looking forward to partnering with Entercom and some other groups throughout the state of New Jersey and New York to try to move the message forward, just to be aware of it. Again, I'm not telling you that you shouldn't do it. You should. If you can enjoy doing it, great, enjoy it. But there's some people that can't, and I hope that the message reaches those people.
I want to ask you about your show in just a second, but one last thing. I heard you say in the HBO documentary that ever since you were a kid, you feared prison, which I was like, wow, that's amazing that you had that fear since you were a kid. Yeah. Now you've actually been through it. Did reality match the fear?
Well, I was very lucky. There's different tiers of prisons. I was at a prison camp in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. And while it's no joyride, it is not the same as a low, a medium, or a high. So the experience I had there was unlike what I had seen on TV and in the movies that had frightened me so much. That being said, I recommend not breaking the law and not ever having to experience what I experienced, because there's nothing really all that glamorous about it.
What did freedom smell like the day you walked out?
It smelled like a pepperoni pizza from John's on Bleecker. It's one of those things. It's such a weird thing to say, freedom, right? You take it for granted because you have it. And when it's, I say taken away from you, but when you give it up, because in theory my actions led to it, so I gave it away. And all the teeny little things, things that you would never ever contemplate or spend a second of your life thinking about, all come rushing at you as, well, I'd love to have that right now, and I miss that right now. And it's just little things, there's millions of them that happen to me all day, every day now that I don't take for granted, that I'm so appreciative of. And from that standpoint, I take that out of my experience, and that'll drive me for the rest of my life.
About your show, you said right about the same time when you got arrested that you'll be back stronger than ever. You've been gone long enough now that people have formed new habits, especially during COVID. So how will you measure success? Because it might take a while to bring some people back. What pressure are you putting on yourself? To
be number one. To me, that's the goal. And then if any other goal to me would be silly.
How silly?
I'd love to be number one, November 9th. I recognize this competition in the marketplace. I've never really broadcasted head-to-head against the afternoon shows of New York, because the last time I did afternoons was, 13 years ago in New Jersey. But I know the animal, I know the lifestyle of doing afternoons, and much like I approached mornings, my job is, along with Evan Roberts and the rest of the crew we put together, is to give the audience the most entertaining, compelling radio, so they choose us over every other radio station. And I still, to this day, feel very comfortable in my ability to do that. And anything short of being number one, to me, would be unacceptable. That's the goal I set for me and for everyone else in the show. And, if we don't get there, we did something wrong. There's no reason for the Carton and Roberts show not to be number one, with all due respect, of course, to CBS 880. We want to beat you. We want to beat everybody.
Right. I get that. And the only crazy, I'm not being glib when I use the phrase wild card, but the only wild card is sports radio without sports. We know it's doable during COVID, but it's a very heavy lift. And we know COVID is sadly coming back. What are you going to do? What's your plan?
Well, I never viewed what I did at FAN for the 10 years I was with Boomer as a straight sports show. I think what made us really successful and popular was the fact that we talked about so many other things. And I'm going to approach afternoons with Evan the same exact way. We won't miss a single important New York sports story. We have it on lockdown. So if you're a diehard sports fan, 100%, you get all the sports you need and you want from us. And then we have all this other stuff over here that we're also going to do, because no one, in my opinion, and I've always felt this way, is single-minded where the only thing they ever talk about or care about is last night's game. I don't think the animal exists. Now, last night's game is really, really important to our audience, and we'll make sure we have it covered. We'll obviously be watching the same games as the audience, and we'll talk about it. But then there's everything else, and we're going to deal with everything else too. So if you're tuning in thinking you're getting an old school X's and O's, 1993 straight sports talk show, you're not. And I think we win by doing all the other stuff really well too. And I think people will grow to enjoy the back and forth between me and Evan. Like I said, the rest of the guys that we make a part of the show. And it's just going to be fun. Like, I turn on the radio now, I don't hear anybody having fun. And the world has gotten so crazy and serious, partially because of health concerns, which I respect, COVID. We're all living through that together. But outside of that, when's the last time you put on a radio talk show and just had fun? And we're just entertained listening to the byplay between the hosts and callers and guests. It doesn't exist. So I'm coming into a situation where I think there's this huge black hole in the afternoons where no one's entertaining anybody. No one's having any fun. And from day one, we're going to laugh. We're going to have fun. We're not going to take ourselves seriously. And in doing that, I think very quickly we're going to engage a very significant part of the radio audience in New York City.
I hope you and Evan find that vibe real quick and that chemistry. And I know you know how to have fun and relate that fun because you're a fun guy to listen to. One of the greatest talents I've ever heard on the radio. And
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you back, Craig Carton.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity. It's not every day that competing radio stations have this kind of symbiosis. I don't even know if that word works in that setting, but I'm going to use it anyway because it makes me sound like I'm smart. But I appreciate it, and I'm glad to be back, a part of the family. I look forward, hopefully, sooner than later, to seeing you in the building.
2 to 7 on the Fan, and get your news on 880.
Yes, definitely. Let me look into the camera. Always get your news at 880, and then at 2 o'clock, come right back to me and Evan, and we'll got you covered for the way home.
You've inspired me to go out and get a pepperoni pizza, Craig.
John's on Bleecker.
I'll be there.
Just saying.
See you, Craig. Thanks.